Mic'd up.
Welcome everybody to Hall of Fame Conversations. Our goal today is to have an inaugural broadcast of the Florida Sports Hall of Fame and conversations with their enshrinees. Our goal is both to have inspirational stories to talk about, fun anecdotes about these Hall of Fame members and their journey on becoming a sports legend. So we're looking forward to it. And today our conversation is going to be with class of 2022 enshrinee Barry Smith. And if I was going to describe his career in general, he starred in many roles. He was a two-sport high school phenom. He was a record-setting All-American college football player, first-round NFL pick, and a historical figure in the early days of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So we'd like to welcome Barry Smith, class of 2022, in our inaugural broadcast of the enshrined members of the Florida Sports Hall of Fame Conversations. Welcome, Barry.
John, thank you very much. Really looking forward to our conversations today and very excited about what's going on with the Florida Sports Hall of Fame.
Well, it's any Hall of Fame member career is a journey. Just like when you go to Wikipedia and they say early life and professional life and career life, and you try to get the full scope on it. Of course, a lot of times people put things on Wikipedia. I don't know if they're true or not. I mean, we share a common interest that my dad was an NFL All-Pro linebacker, and that's how we met back in 1980 because you and I and my dad got together and we created an NFL alumni chapter and had some fun running golf tournaments. And so a lot of times I'd look up my dad in Wikipedia and there's a picture of some other guy that's not him, or there's some sort of fact or figure that just never happened. So we're going to clear the record here, and we're welcoming you here to our Hall of Fame conversations. And for our listeners out there and our viewers, if you want to learn more about the Florida Sports Hall of Fame, go to Florida Sports. So it's FLA Sports, HOF.org. It's that .org. FLA Sports, HOF.org. And you'll see Barry, and you'll see all the enshrinees, all the different sports, whether it's football, basketball, baseball. We even have a horse in the Florida Sports Hall of Fame that was inducted, I believe, in I'm not sure what year that was, but won the Kentucky Derby. And since the Kentucky Derby is coming up this weekend, I think the horse's name is Needles, and it's from Ocala. So anyway, let's not digress too much, Barry. Let's just get right into it. Tell us, I told everybody that you're a two-sport high school phenom, and you're born and raised here in Florida. Tell us a little bit about your high school experience and your career.
Well, I grew up, was born and raised in South Florida in Miami, and very proud of that. My family's from there. In high school, I guess that's where it all begins. I mean, there's always the warm up stuff, with the Pee Wee football stuff or whatever, doesn't really count. But in high school, I went to a new high school, Miami Coral Park. Jose Canseco and Pitbull are a couple glorious alumnus, I guess, if you want to say that. But it was a new school. But I transitioned. Football has always been I've been very passionate about football, but I really wanted to play baseball as well. I got to high school and realized I couldn't hit the curveball all that good. And one of the assistant football coaches thought that I would make an excellent high hurdler. And of course, I told him he's out of his mind. But anyways, fast forward, I actually worked at it. Actually, it came very easy, but then I fine-tuned it and really became a state champion. It was a lot of fun doing that because, football is such a team sport and track is all about yourself. So our football team, was an okay. Wasn't a great team, but as an individual, it was a lot of fun becoming a state champion, and I worked very hard at it.
Well, I know you reside in the Tampa Bay area, and I live over in the St. Augustine area on the beach in the Atlantic Ocean. And my youngest daughter just informed me the other day that we are going to a Pitbull concert, and it's going to be at the St. Pete Amphitheater coming up. So I'm going to have to bone up on that. I have the Sirius FM radio in the car, so I'll have to plug into the Pitbull channel and see what that's all about. But looking forward to that. So Barry, I know that from high school you went on to college and you went on to the Florida State University football team. tell us a little bit about the years you played and your experiences there. And for everybody viewing here, Barry, I believe, still holds receiving records at Florida State University. And that's even with all the great receivers and football players you've had through national championships at Florida State University and things like that. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, first I'll say I came very close to becoming a Tennessee Volunteer. It's because of their track program, both football and track program, and FSU wasn't all that recognized yet as having an outstanding track program. But I actually negotiated that into my scholarship that I could run track in the off season, which I did at Florida State. But back in our day, in 1969, when I was a freshman, freshmen could not play varsity football. And so that first year, obviously, I was on the scout squad. I remember very vividly, the week of the FSU Florida game, that they put a number 45 jersey on me so I could emulate Carlos Alvarez. And of course, they pummeled the hell out of me that week. But, when you fast forward, being at Florida State helped me realize my dreams, because I wanted to go to a university that I could, if I was going to be the best, could become the best, that was the place for me. And we had some outstanding coaches, Bill Parcells and Dan Henning, Joe Gibbs. I could go on and on, that some of the coaches that were on the staff while we were there. And obviously with the passing attack we had, like I said, I got to, set records, become an All-American, become a #1 draft choice. Now, one of the things, when you talk about records and stats and all that, now granted, we're talking like 50 years ago now, so it's a different ball game. But I was very proud of the fact that at the time I was there, I broke scoring records of Fred Biletnikoff and Ron Sellers. And of course, they're members of the College Football Hall of Fame, and Fred is a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Probably the most, if you want to say, I still hold the record for the highest average per catch in a career, 20.1. So I'm very proud of that, because when you think about it, all the passes I caught, I averaged 20 yards a catch, not 10 or 12 and all that. And my ratio of touchdown catches, which touchdown catches to catches, was pretty low. So it was all about getting in the end zone and catching long passes, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, it made for exciting times. Let's put it that way. And I was kind of known as the fast white kid. And, hey, I'll ride that pony till I guess it collapses. But very exciting times. We played in the very first Fiesta Bowl game in 1971 out there in Tempe, Arizona, against Danny White and a bunch of other guys. Back then, there was only maybe 8 or 9 bowl games. So actually, you had to have a winning record and had a good team to be able to be invited. And you think about where the Fiesta Bowl has now come. It's a premier, bowl game. So we like to think that, we kind of helped inaugurate that. So again, exciting times. Also ran track, at Florida State, and was on a team that we broke the school record for the High Hurdles Shuttle Relay. And, first I was a football player first and ran track for fun, but running the high hurdles was great conditioning for being a wide receiver.
Well, we appreciate you being here on Mic'd Up Social. These are the folks that have brought this wonderful technology to us, where we can actually have sports legends like yourself talk to us in casual conversations about their career. And one of the interesting things about this application with Mic'd Up Social is the fact that you can ask questions, and people from the general public can actually ask questions. So we put this out on our social media this week, and letting everybody know there's going to be a broadcast that we can listen to live and archive. And lo and behold, one of the questions is coming to us from an NBA Hall of Famer named Rick Barry, who's obviously, you share his name in some way, shape, or form. And I think he's from Miami, isn't he?
He's a Miami Hurricane. I can tell you, as a kid, growing up, going to some of the University of Miami basketball games and listening to him on the radio, I know who Rick Barry is, and he's a stud. He's an all-star. He's an all-timer.
Well, part of this broadcast is not only Rick Barry asked a question, he recorded a question for us. So I'm going to go ahead and play it, and we'll listen into his question, and I think it pertains a lot to what's going on in college right now. And you just mentioned that things are a lot different now in college than they were in the past. So let me go ahead and play Rick Barry's question.
Rick Barry here. Hope all is well with you, and curious as to what do you think NIL is going to do to football in college?
Well, that's an interesting question, the NIL, and I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts on that because I know in your day, you get in trouble if you took a free meal or an oil change from a car dealership or something. So, for viewers out there, if you're watching this, chances are you know what NIL is, but I'm going to go over and just say it's name, image, and likeness, and these are endorsement deals that college kids now can use, and some of these deals are quite substantial, and now it's turned into a bidding war, it seems like, in college football. So, Barry, what are your thoughts on it as a former college football player, and how would you react to the NIL nowadays if you were born now versus back in the day?
All right. I'll try not to make this too long-winded. First of all, obviously, back in our day, you couldn't get nothing. Okay. And universities would get in trouble if they were getting caught, let's say, paying players under the table. Okay. Or providing any benefits, extra benefits to any player, simple as even meals. Okay. Which is ridiculous. But anyway, be that as it may. All right. So one, let me say, I'm all for the player for making money, making extra money, and all that. It's the way of the world. I mean, everybody should have an opportunity to make money on their own, and this is where I get a little, let's say, my nose been out of joint. One, now that the college football has really, when I say blown up, and I say blown up for good because I love the game, it's exciting as hell. There's a lot of money out there. I mean, we see it, but when the conferences, when you started the bowl playoff systems and the college playoffs and the national championship games, well, the universities were making some serious money, and of course, they start paying the college coaches some serious money. And the problem is they forgot about the players along the way, and that's why we have this Pandora's box has been opened because the NCAA did not pay attention, didn't care about the college athlete because the game is about the college athlete and ain't about the coaches. Okay, but be that as it may. So actually, what's happened is the name, image, and likeness rule was passed for the student athlete to go out on his own. I say, quote, on his own. And if he could get a deal from somebody, it was okay, it was legal. But what has happened is that not every state, okay, different states pass different laws. And so instead of the individuals going out and getting a deal on their own, what they've done is they flipped it and they reversed it, and it's now up to the universities to bring the deal to the table, hence the bidding wars. And this is where that I'm not real excited about because when you say the have and have nots, I mean, in the long run, okay, years ago, the reason why they had this rule that nobody could be paying players, because let's say Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, USC, University, Texas, teams like that, bigger alumni base, lots of money, old money, and all that. Well, smaller colleges or younger colleges certainly couldn't keep up with that. So, hence, they tried to create a level playing field. This rule now is flipped it again, and I think what you're going to see is those universities that have stronger alumni bases or richer. Look at Texas A&M, ridiculous funny money they're paying Jimbo Fisher and all that. Can't even win a game, but anyway. Um, so what you're going to have at some point, you're going to have only those universities that can afford to pay big time players are probably going to get the top players, and they'll continue to win year after year. And the average, let's say, the other teams will be fighting to stay, let's say, to stay current or try to stay relevant in their conferences. And you may see another split where the big boys, the top boys from all the major conferences, will probably gather, and there'll be another realignment. And the big boys, there'll be a super conference, and they'll play for a national championship. So I don't know if I made any sense. Oh, then you throw in the transfer portal. So now it's really a whack job because you're getting guys out of high school, but now you get the transfers, and it is a bidding war because I mean, any university, when uh, they still need money to improve their facilities to keep up with the Joneses. At the same time, hey, we need more money because we got to get this offensive tackle, this defensive back, this wide receiver. Um, hey, it is what it is, and God bless it. I wish that. Listen, in the NFL, I'm a number one draft choice back in '73. The money today, mega millions compared to hundreds of thousands. Let's put it that way. Back
Well,
then.
yeah, that's a good segue into our next part of your journey at becoming a sports legend. So, after Florida State University, you were the number one NFL draft pick for the Green Bay Packers. And why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Tell us a little bit about your career leading up to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in '76.
Well, obviously exciting times because I had a good career at Florida State, and I had some really good performances in the Senior Bowl, and which helped elevate me from uh, let's say a second round to a first round draft choice. Unfortunately, when I got to Green Bay, it was a little frustrating. I had 9 quarterbacks in 3 years at Green Bay, and they had some issues. So it was like uh, being a sprinter and asking to you now have to run the mile, the mile race. It was the square peg and round hole. Um, so I was up there 73, 4 and 5. Did okay, but it was very frustrating. Needless to say, I was freezing to death most of the time, being a good Florida boy, up in Green Bay. And don't forget, back then, they didn't have all the technologies with, let's say, uniforms and the undergarment type stuff to help you keep you warm, let alone the gloves. Okay. Not making
Hey,
excuses.
let's dial something back here. Let's dial back to draft night because I
Yep.
was watching television the other day, and each year it seems like this NFL draft is not only just a draft; it's become a
Oh,
major event. I mean, I was reading where hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people come in to watch the NFL draft. A green room for all the kids they think are going to be the number one pick, and I mean, the war room set up of computers, and there's 50 people in there, and they get their draft pick, and you think that we just won the war versus Europe versus Germany or something. I mean, it was that big of a deal every time they got the pick they wanted. Tell us about your draft night experience back in '73.
well, unlike today, which I will say, I love the fans. We are fortunate to have fans, fanatics, we'll call them, that support the game, support the sport, and make it what it is. But back in '73, and back then the draft was at the end of January, not in April, and it started in the morning. And I literally was sitting in my little apartment called Alumni Village. I was married at the time, and uh, we had, there was one phone, the old rotate, rotate phone, and sat there. There was no pomp and pageantry. The phone eventually rang. There was no call waiting by then, so I had a buddy of mine that did call very early, and it scared the hell out of me because I said, "Oh my God, I could not be the number one overall draft choice," which of course I wasn't. Hung up on my buddy, but anyway, when the phone call came, it was just from a staff person with the Packers. Just, it was like Jiggy Schmaha. Hey, I'm with Green Bay Packers. I just want to let you know you've been selected by the Green Bay Packers, and we'll be back in touch. I didn't know if I was a first round, what number, who, what, and where. It was really like that. Okay. And then later in the day, I got some phone calls from the sports right, well, the Associated Press. And then the university called me, and then they rounded up James Thomas, or JT Thomas, who was also a number one from Florida State. He got selected by Pittsburgh, and Gary Huff, who was selected in the high second round by the Chicago Bears. They rounded all three of us up. We went to the bottom of the Capitol where the press room was down there, and they had a press conference. And that's where we actually found out what the hell was going on. It was really funny. It was really like that. No pomp and pageantry. They had to go find James Thomas. You talked to him. He'd been out partying the night before and was not in his hotel room or his dorm room at the time. And of course, he did not have a phone back then. Nobody had phones in their dorm room, and nobody could get a hold of him. And anyways, they eventually got a hold of him, and that was really it. There was nothing to it. But let me tell you what, it was very exciting, to be back then, to know, my God, because to think, when as a little kid, you have dreams, you have goals, and say, this day has come, and I'm there, and but that was the only part of it. Like I said, it's a long, hard climb, but I thank God for the opportunity.
Hey, well, let's talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. When I was introducing you to the viewers here, we were talking about you being a historical figure in the early days of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because I've heard a lot of great stories. I remember one year I had the great opportunity attending the dinner of the 76 Buccaneer team and talk about stories and anecdotes and fun things about it. But it was historically, I know it was your last year in the NFL. And so talk a little bit about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then talk a little bit about what happened to you after the Buccaneers, because that wasn't necessarily supposed to be your last year in football.
Well, in 1976, there was the Seattle Seahawks and the Buccaneers were new teams into the NFL, so they had the expansion draft. They had a draft, the regular college draft, then they had the expansion draft. So I had gone to Bart Starr and said, "Don't know what your plans are for me, but I would like to go to the Buccaneers." And Ron Wolf was the GM down here. He came over from the Raiders, and then was the GM with the Bucks. Anyway, so I got selected in the expansion draft, and actually became the very first player to ever play for the two Bay teams, because I went from Green Bay to Tampa Bay. So henceforth, historical moment. You'll win a bar bet on that one like that. Um, I can tell you that the 76 team, even though it turned out to be a very difficult year for a lot of reasons, but the guys on that original team are very, very close. We have unfortunately lost a number of teammates that have passed away, and it's really tough to take because we had a very close bond. Hell, Steve Spurrier was my quarterback. Think about that, a Gator Seminole hooking up. And a lot of respect for Steve. He was certainly one of the team leaders. And let me tell you what, the very first, now here's a funny story. So the very first team practice, they're bringing everybody in, okay, that had, the rookies in, the veteran players, the free agents. The first practice ever was in May, and it was in, we all flew in. We're staying at the Hall of Fame motel. It's not even there anymore. The Hall of Fame golf course. I think you know all about that. But they bust us over to Lato High School. In Lato High School on I'll say like Saturday morning or something like that, for the first practice, just get together. We couldn't get into Lato High School because somebody wasn't there to unlock all the gates for us to get into the place. And then when they finally got the gates and we went out on the practice field, the football field there, nobody had commoded in a month or so. So we're running around in like knee-high grass, and it's like, oh, dear God. So I don't know if that foretold that, oh, my God, this is going to be the kind of season it is. But anyway, again, some very, very dear friends and some very fond memories. And now, at the end of the season, okay, and when I say it was a very difficult season, again, it was tough on a lot of people. I got traded to the Miami Dolphins, Okay. And actually, it was February 4th, 1977. It was my sister's birthday. I was down in Miami, and I get a phone call. They tracked me down to my parents' house. No cell phones back then. And I was told that I'd been traded to the Miami Dolphins. And then the Miami Dolphins called and said, Don Shula wants to meet with you right away. So, one, I'm excited as hell because I grew up in Miami. I went to the very first Miami Dolphin game in 1966 when I was in high school, and sitting in the upper deck in the Orange Bowl. And so, you know, to play for four teams that really never had a winning record, now you get a chance to go to Miami Dolphins. Greasy, was still there. I mean, they were still in the Super Bowl hunts and playoff hunts and all that. Anyway, make a long story short, Howard Twilley had retired. And so Shula brought me in to be, back then, they didn't have five wides, but he brought me in to be the receiver, like in the slot on passing downs to complement Duriel Harris and Nat Moore, that were starters on the outside. And I was having a very good preseason. They gave me number 85. He gave me 85 because he said, that's Bill Stanfield's number, and you got big shoes to fill between Howard Twilley and Bill Stanfield, okay? Or Nick Bonaconti's number. And so it was the best shape I'd ever been in. Unfortunately, during the preseason, I contracted a polio virus and was wound up being quarantined in Mercy Hospital. The CDC came down. They had me quarantined because they thought I might had spinal meningitis or encephalitis. After a couple spinal taps, it was determined that I had polio, which was a shocker. I was there, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks in the hospital. Lost 30 pounds of muscle. I had weighed 185, got down to 155, and it was obviously, it was over. I was done, and so physically I was done, and it's not an exciting way to end a career. Now I will say there was, like, on the other side, it took me quite a long time to get back to, if you want to say, normal health and all that. And of course, internally, I wanted to play because, the way it ended, I said, I'm going to come back. I'm going to show everybody that I can come back. Unfortunately, it didn't really work out that way. I actually did sign a free agent contract with the St. Louis Cardinals. And the night before I was supposed to leave, I had one of those moments, and I said, it's not worth it. They had Bud Wilkinson was the new coach. I was a free agent signee. And be honest with you, I knew that I wasn't in the shape that I needed to be. And you have to be an elite athlete to compete in the NFL. And I was basically by myself working out in Tallahassee. I was working for a United States senator, as a job. And back then you didn't have all the, let's say, all those things maybe one needed to maybe help you get back to that point. But I knew that I didn't. I'd lost the speed and just everything else. So, hey, I did. I played flag football with a bunch of buddies there in Tallahassee, and just went on and went on from there. And you don't look back because I did get to play, got to score touchdowns to Lambeau, caught passes from Steve Spurrier, and have my name my image on a football card and an RC Cola can. So, you know what? Not bad.
Well, not bad at all. In fact, for viewers out there, I actually own one of your signed helmets and football cards signed, and so had some fun with that, getting the picture up for the show ready today. But one piece of advice I want you to give to anybody out there listening that may be in the same shoes as you, maybe not has had the success, but was an athlete, played professionally. There's a lot of people out there. Most people have the misconception, for example, in football, if you just play a few years, the average NFL player only plays a couple of years. You have to play 4 years at least to be vested in the pension plan. And even though they might make some money, money goes away, disappears pretty fast. Even if they're making $800,000 a year, which would be like almost the minimum now for an NFL player, after a couple of years, out of the league, what advice would you give them? Because I know you've had a Hall of Fame career after football, off the field, doing a lot of things like charity golf tournaments and fun things to do to help the community and raise money for kids. So, but at the same time, you had to make a living. You had to go out there and make a living and try to feed your family. But yet, you were used to being a star and the center of attention, and now you're not. How do players adjust for that? What advice would you give them?
Well, I think, you know what, and not to sound corny, but I think I had great parents, and you have to be able to evaluate yourself and really not think any more of yourself. You know, you say, quote, people hangs, let's say you're a star, you're a legend, you're a great athlete and all that. But, in life, they said life is a journey that you got to be more than just an athlete. And so the way I looked at it is while I was sitting in a hospital bed, let's put it that way, that I go, okay, I'm not going to use it as an excuse to give up and, oh, woe is me. I go, okay, I'm a tough SOB. This is another challenge, life's challenge. And, the passion and the intensity that I put into becoming an NFL, let's say, or professional athlete, you put it in the work world. You learn to use your sports background as an advantage, because that opened up and has opened up and continues to open up many, many doors. And I'll call it the art of networking, is very important. You got to put yourself out there. The one thing about being an athlete, yeah, you're going to get your teeth kicked in your ass beat from time to time, but you're also going to win games. You're going to have great moments and all that. And that's what makes life exciting, is to be on the sidelines. No, you got to jump into the game of life. And that's where it's all about, jumping the game of life. And I know I've raised my two kids that way. And I always encourage any other parents and any other, kids to don't be afraid to take a chance, because that's when it gets real and that's when it gets exciting.
Well, for viewers out there, we're going to wrap things up here. We're thanking Barry Smith for being on as a class of 2022 Florida Sports Hall of Fame enshrinee. And like we said at the opening of the show, two-sport high school phenom, record-setting All-American college football player, first-round NFL pick, historical figure of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the early days, but more importantly, a great human being and humanitarian for his community and for his family. So with that, Barry, we appreciate you being on our show, our Hall of Fame conversations on behalf of the Florida Sports Hall of Fame, and wish you some luck. I know that there's a celebrity golf tournament coming up, the 6th annual for the Florida Sports Hall of Fame. So we're all looking forward to seeing you there.
Okay. Thank you, John. Have a great weekend.
All right, everybody. We're signing off. Thank you for listening and watching here on Mic'd Up Social and Hall of Fame Conversations on behalf of the Florida Sports Hall of Fame. My name's John Reger, PGA, your host for today. And again, thanks to Barry Smith for being on our show, and we'll see you next time.